Hello, ladies, and perhaps gentlemen too. Welcome to Inner Work for Greater Good. My name is Emily Eldridge. I am your host of this show. I'm the founder of Change Light, the creator of the Change Light system, where we do inner work that accelerates your power to change the world. It's all about lighting you up from the inside, allowing your inner light to shine by healing those struggles and honoring the wisdom and the truth inside of you. And so please do join us at changelight.world in our community, where I've got a course and I teach you the really fun and simple techniques for how to do this, how to clear out all of those inner struggles and how to really know your truth and how to really live it. Because when you live your truth, that is when you fully light up. And when you light up the world. So you change the world, not just by what you do, but by who you are. So welcome, Changemaker. I'm so happy to have you. I'm actually, in case you're curious, I'm in basically my travel wear. I call this my travel wear. So when I travel, I'm actually flying to Spain like right after the show. I'm going to take the subway to JFK and I'm going to be headed off to Spain for a leaders retreat. I'm really excited about it. But anyway, the point is what you're seeing here right now is my travel wear. Oops, sorry if I hit the microphone. My travel wear. So I've got my, it's kind of stuck here. This is actually my little Gohonzon, which I practice a kind of Buddhism called SGI, Nichiren Buddhism. This little Japanese scroll in here. And when I chant to this little scroll. And then I've also got my Guanyin from Shaolin Temple in China. And so I wear this, and this is a symbol actually that came from an organization that I was a part of. But the point is, and then I always wear dark blue or black. Why? Well, to me, it's pretty obvious because when you travel, you tend to get dirty, right? We get food on us and stuff. And so I just like to be comfortable. So I've got my organic cotton top and I've got my yoga pants on, and this is my uniform. So that's what you're seeing me in, because I'm literally going to hop on the subway right after this and head out to Queens, to JFK Airport. I'm going to Barcelona. Woohoo! So anyway, today's topic, I know I'm such a nut. Today's topic has to do with what do you do when you realize that you made a decision in the past, and you realize now that your truth is so much clearer to you, you realize that you made a mistake, that it was a decision you shouldn't have made, or like if you'd really known what your truth was more clearly at the time, you never would have done that. And so it's a matter of like, well, how do I undo this? Or how do I, well, the right term is backpedal, but how do I change this? And what do I do, when I realize that, oh gosh, something's not in alignment with my truth? It can be really hard. Let me tell you something. It is absolutely, in my experience and from my own observations, is that it is denying our truth is soul crushing. When we deny what we know is true for us, what is right for us, what is in alignment with what our soul wants for us, however you want to perceive it, your soul or whatever, it can absolutely, it's like, from where I sit, it looks like a slow death. And you can see that that person is not lit up, or you can see that they're trying to overcompensate with other ways of bringing themselves joy, or trying to find some kind of meaning or purpose. And so it's just such a sad thing when we don't truly honor our truths. And a lot of us don't. And let me also point out though here, because I'm often asked, when I speak to communities in other countries, it's one thing to sit here and, I can say, well, just live your truth and just honor your truth and do what's right for you and say that. But there are a lot of people in situations, and you may be in one of these situations where, because of societal restrictions or any number of other things, it's not necessarily that easy to do. It can be really, really hard, and you could be up against a lot of really overwhelming and sometimes even dangerous societal, cultural forces. So I often say, live your truth to the best extent that you can, and to find whatever avenues that you can in order, to live your truth that can light you up and feel in alignment, so that you are at least allowing yourself to light up to some extent. So I just want to say that it's not, I don't want to act as though it's some Pollyanna, as though we can just all snap our fingers and immediately live our truths. It's a process. But my point is today is to talk about, what about when you realize that, gosh, dang it, I made a mistake and I can feel it. first of all, I want to talk about what that feels like when we realize that we have made a mistake or that something is not in alignment with our truth. Now that we're more clear about that, what that inner knowing is telling us, how do you recognize that? And then what do you do? First of all, let me back up a little bit. I use this term truth. It's very commonly thrown around. When I say the word truth, first of all, I think of it as your capital T truth, that you have a truth that you are here to live. I have my own truth that I am here to live. And nobody knows your truth but you. Now, we can always help each other discover our truths. It's not as though we're islands or, that nobody can help us recognize what our own truth is. But ultimately, you know what your truth is. Ultimately, you know it better than I do, just as I know my truth better than anyone. And it's also not only that, it's your job to live your truth, just as it's my job to live my truth. It is no one else's job to live my truth. I am the only one who can live my own truth. This is, I see it, and the same goes for you. I see this is our job. This is our soul's job that it's given us in a way, that says, okay, this is your reason for being, this is the light you're here to shine. This is your presence you're here to be. And so that leads me to define truth. I've defined it many times in past episodes, but in case this is your first episode of mine that you're watching, I define your truth as your inner knowing of who you are and who you are here to be. So it's a knowing of who you are and who you're here to be. It's like an inner compass. And the reason why I put it as that both and is because when you think about, if I were to ask someone, well, what is your truth telling you? The answer to that question could be, well, what feels right for you right now? But the answer could also be in terms of, well, what feels like it will get you where you need to go, like with what feels in the right direction for you. And so that's why it's your inner knowing of who you are and who you're here to be, and it's like your inner compass. And so what I find when it comes to, I'll speak for myself, when it comes to my own inner truth, I experience it in different ways, that's not true. I experience it in one very clear way, but I would say that I get messages in different ways. So for example, the way I experience my truth is it's like just this core solid knowing inside me. It is this core pillar of clarity and knowledge and wisdom and strength and courage, if you will. Although it's funny because I say courage, and yet, people would define courage as doing something even in the face of fear. But my truth doesn't fear. I might fear, right? Parts of me might have fears, just as parts of you might have fears, but your truth does not have fear. Your truth is unassailable, solid, clear. But what happens is we have that core pillar of truth inside all of us, but what happens is we end up with, as I often talk about, those inner X powers, those parts of us that get distorted by fear, by pain, that are trying to protect us from more fear. But the point is, it becomes, these distortions can be like static, or like distractions, or like, psychological, emotional distractions, mental distractions, beliefs that form that aren't necessarily in alignment with that truth, because maybe we needed to adopt certain patterns of behaviors or certain defense mechanisms in order to try to protect ourselves, as children or in our particular cultures or societies. And so the point is that truth is always there. You always have that truth. It's just that it gets obscured, or it can get obscured by these different sort of things that get in the way. And so that's what this is about, though, is that what, as we go through life and we have these parts of us that may obscure our real knowing of our truth, that as you do that work, that inner work to clear out and to heal those wounds and to bring forward your powers and that clarity and that knowing of your truth, is that what happens is that all of a sudden, and I'm sure you've experienced this, all of a sudden you have these epiphanies, you have these realizations, and it's like, wow, I thought that was a good decision at the time, but now I realize that was a mistake. Or, wow, I thought that person was good for me at the time, but now I realize they're really not. When you start to recognize, that things that you may have, thought were good, or you sort of were just, maybe you were just making a quick split second decision, whatever the circumstances were, you realize that, wait a minute, that's not right for me. Is that, what do you do when you realize that? And so I would just say that, that first of all, it's important to recognize when that's happening. And let me just give you an example before I go into sort of my short little list of ways that I can tell when something's not in alignment with my truth, and maybe I've made a mistake, and maybe I need to make some changes, or back out of something, or what have you. So some of the ways that I find that I can tell when I'm out of alignment with my truth is, first of all, and a lot of this is really simple, it's something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't quite feel right. Even if you can't put your finger on it, something doesn't quite feel right. Even if on the surface things look a certain way, something still doesn't feel right. And to me, I would say that can be an intuitive thing, that even if circumstances look a certain way, or even if, you think sort of in your left brain, think, well, no, rationally, this seems like a good choice, but still something's not quite right. I think that's worth looking at. And that can be when it's like, you could say it's like your truth is telling you, or it's merely that you are aware of the dissonance or the disconnect or the disharmony between the energy of that situation, or whatever's, that situation, and the knowing of your truth. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily like your truth is going no, although you might experience it that way. It could also just be that you're like, yeah, something doesn't feel right, kind of like a compass kind of going, wow, I don't know, that's not quite right, so something doesn't feel right. Also, sometimes when we've made a choice that we thought was right at the time, but we realized later on, you know what, I really wasn't acting from my deepest core knowing and my highest good, is that sometimes if you notice yourself working too hard to rationalize or make excuses. So it could be you're trying to rationalize your own decisions. Or you're trying to you're making excuses for other people, or even making excuses for yourself. Oftentimes when we're trying to justify or rationalize or make excuses, just look at the nature of what you're doing, is you can tell that something's not, but you're, that it's like when we make excuses, implied within making an excuse is knowing that you're not actually doing the right thing, or you're trying to justify something that really isn't entirely, I don't want to say unjustifiable, but just there's something that's not in alignment there. And so we're trying to convince ourselves, well, no, but and that's another good one. Like if you're trying to convince yourself that something's right, that would automatically, I think, is an important thing to recognize when it's like, if I'm trying to make too much sense of this, or if I'm trying to rationalize, or if I'm trying to make excuses for, for my own choices, or if I'm trying to, do any of these kinds of things, that clearly there's some kind of disharmony in there that I am not fully recognizing or allowing myself to be honest about with myself. So that's something really important. Also, when we're clinging to something, this can be actually when we rationalize, justify, we might actually be unconsciously clinging to something because we think that we need that thing in order to feel stronger or more powerful or feel safe or what have you, and that can be an indication that maybe actually I'm clinging to this thing, but maybe this isn't actually what I need for my growth, or maybe this isn't really what's in my highest and best good right now, and that it's in sort of energetically not in alignment, or maybe it's trying to pull away and I'm working too hard to hold on to it because I think I need that in order to have whatever sense of safety I want or think I need in my life. So and one of the reasons why this word cling is great. My mother posted actually literally just like a day or two ago. Don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. Don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. My mother's a very wise woman. I've mentioned her before. I don't know if that's backwards, whatever. Don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. I'm going to use an example of someone I know in terms of his relationship. He was in a relationship with a woman, married to a woman for quite a number of years. And, you know, afterwards, after they got divorced and he really woke up and realized how toxic it was, you know, he was kind of shaming himself for why he even gotten involved with this person in the first place. And, you know, and we talked about it a lot. And, you know, ultimately it comes down to, you know, he was making the best decision that he knew how at the time. And that and that goes by, that's by way of saying we are all doing the best we can at the time with what we know. We are all doing the best we can with what we know at every given moment. And that's what he was doing when he chose to be with her. And he would even sit here and tell you now, he was like, I was really insecure, is what he said. He's like, I thought nobody else would ever love me. And so I put up with a lot of abuse, etc. And so, you know, in hindsight, he was shaming himself. But at the same time, he was really making choices from where he could best make those choices. But then as his truth emerged and he became more clear about it, he realized that those weren't the choices that he would have made, you know, if he'd really been truly in tune with his own truth. But here's another thing too that I think speaks to this quote about not clinging to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. In that case, he actually told me that prior to marrying this woman, he had actually sort of decided this is the kind of woman that I want to marry. And he had a list and it was like beautiful and this and like certain things. And so sure enough, she fit the bill on all of those things in that list. I would say that one of the things he failed to put on that list was like someone who was kind, you know, things like that, or someone who like really loved and respected him. But he wanted certain things in his mental, you know, sort of in his mental framework. Here's what I want. And he actually got what he wanted. And so what happened was he actually ended up using that to subconsciously keep rationalizing and clinging to that relationship because he's like, but this is what I asked for. So how could I possibly let it go? Even as he knew that it was not healthy and that it was toxic. Yeah, but this is what I asked for. I mean, I got what I asked for, so I should be happy. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's what he asked for, but he asked for it from that older consciousness, if you would, or from that place where his truth was more obscured. So now that he gained clarity, he realized, wait, you know, there was a part of him that was clearly saying, this is not right. And yet he kept rationalizing and he kept trying to justify and kept trying to even like make excuses or you know, sort of saying, well, no, I should accept this because, well, I mean, this is, you know, it's sort of like the universe gave this to me, therefore I need to accept it. But that's not how it works. We ask for what we want from the place of clarity that we had at the time. But the whole point is, hopefully, as we go along, we gain greater clarity. And so we can make better decisions. And what that can often mean is we realize that the decisions we made in the past are not the ones that we need in the present and going into the future. And so it's important to recognize, even if that's what you thought you wanted in the past, that may not necessarily align with what you want today. And it may not be good for who you are today. You may be done growing from that situation or that relationship or whatever that is. So it's important to be really honest and recognize that. I'm going to give the reason why I even brought this whole topic up, and I'm going to share a few more things, but the reason why I even brought this topic up in the first place is because this past week, I finally got really clear about something that had been gnawing at me, like gnawing. And it was a decision that I made months ago that had to do with, for those of you who've been watching my shows, these episodes, you know that I've made some big changes in my business. I have team members and we're really expanding the work to help a lot of people. And so all along the way, I've been making certain choices. And back when I first started with this new phase, I was, and I didn't totally realize it at the time. I actually really didn't realize it at the time. It took me a while, but I didn't realize how burned out I was as a visionary and as an entrepreneur and as a solopreneur. And I'd spent so many years really trying to do this work for myself and, by myself and really struggling. And so then when I brought on a team member, I then kind of sort of defaulted to, okay, well, I have this new team member. So, I almost kind of deferred. I deferred. I was still making conscious choices, but I was like, well, I should try and I should trust in the process, and I should just sort of try new things and get out of my comfort zone. So the point is that I made certain choices and I like signed certain contracts that at the time I was very aware that it wasn't like a clear yes. It wasn't like, yes, this feels right. It was sort of a, oh, okay, well, I should try this, right? So what was I doing? I was kind of rationalizing. I was kind of justifying. I was trying to convince myself that this was a good decision because I'm like, well, I should try it. Well, okay, And so hear the difference between like my tone of voice versus the tone of voice when I was talking to myself and trying to convince myself of certain things. And so the point is there's this one particular decision that I made not months ago that I wasn't entirely convinced of, but I thought, well, I'll give it a try, right? And so I signed up to do it. And as soon as I signed up, it just bothered me. It just bothered me. And I kept going, what is bothering me? But I kept going, well, no, Emily, just keep giving this a try. And maybe this is just a new approach for you. You're not used to this, going at your business a certain way, and so, but it just kept gnawing at me and gnawing. And, I mean, gnawing as in like, you can feel it where it's like, and it was like I started to notice how it was like sucking this energy. And I'm like waking up in the middle of the night. Now, mind you, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I know something is bothering me. I'm usually a pretty good sleeper. So if I'm waking up at 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, I know something subconsciously is really bothering me. And my subconscious is trying to get through to me and say, Emily, you got to look at this. You got to revisit this. You said this to this person, but no, that's not right. And so anyway, that's what was happening for me. So it was really annoying me. So anyway, the point is that I finally sat down and was like, and I was talking like to my husband, talking this through, and I was talking to other people about this. Like, I don't know, this bothers me, that bothers me, I don't know. And what I started to do, and I've used this word before in previous episodes, where I said, parse it out. What is it exactly that's bothering? Does it feel like, okay, so in this case, did it feel like the company that I was dealing with was in any way like not giving me what I had contracted from them? No. Do they seem dishonest? No. It turned out that it was just sort of the core of the approach that then didn't feel right and didn't feel in alignment with the clarity of who I am today. And I should say, and I didn't add this, I actually went through a big shift a few months after I signed up, in which I suddenly had this like lightning bolt of clarity in this terms of strength in my own leadership in the business. And so what happened was I went from being that burned out visionary entrepreneur to really going, nope, I'm taking charge and I know what I'm doing. And so that's actually what had happened is I'd had a big shift. And since I'd had this big shift, it made me start to go, wait a minute, and really feel all the more clearly like, I don't know if this is right. I made this decision and I thought I'd give this a try, but it's still really bothering me. And I'm starting to go, is it just because it's out of my comfort zone, or is there something that is really not in alignment for me? And so the point is that this past week, that's what really, this is not in alignment. This is just not in alignment. It doesn't feel right. And so I made the decision to ask to get out of that contract because I was like, this isn't right. And I need to get out of this because this is just so far out of alignment with what I know is right for me. Now, I actually had a conversation just yesterday with the person, with whom I contracted, and they were very gracious. Luckily, they were really great. But then they were also like, well, what if we were to try this other approach? And intuitively, I wasn't ready to make a decision. Again, trusting, right? You got to trust your intuition. You got to trust your truth. I'm still processing. And I said that. I said, I need to process this. I need us to pause this for a bit so that I can get clear on what I know is right for me. And then I'll let you know and I'll make a decision. And so I really appreciated that this person really honored my truth. I'm really blessed and grateful that they did. But it's also a matter of I'm still having to process this. But that's the point, is that that's what came up for me this past week, where suddenly I just got, I got to really honor this gnawing feeling, and I got to get clear on what's going on here. And and the point is sometimes that means having to make changes. And that's what's hard. So when it comes to making those changes, I say, well, first and foremost, you've got to be really honest with yourself. Be really honest, even if you're scared about what the fallout is. You first and foremost have to be honest with yourself. You've got to get clear on what is going on, where is something not in alignment, and just own it and sit with it. And even then, it may be a little bit of a, kind of still got to dig in a little, not dig in, but, just really feel down and go, okay, so what's the core of this discomfort? For me, the core of the discomfort, I realized, is that the approach that I contracted to take, just in the way that we were doing it, was not, I'm not going to say does not feel, it's just not in alignment with one of my core values. And as much as I kept trying consciously and unconsciously to rationalize that away, it just wasn't working, because it's not supposed to work. I'm not supposed to rationalize it away. I'm supposed to honor that core value. I'm supposed to honor that. That is a part of my truth, and I have to honor it. And if I don't honor it, it's going to bother me. So that is something that you've got to do, is really honor that. And sometimes that means having to backpedal, having to backtrack a bit, and go ahead and say, you know what, I made a mistake. And I realize now that I made this choice back then, and I've been trying to, and that's what I did. I'm trying to work with this. I'm trying to be okay with this, but you know what, it's just really not okay for me. And maybe, and this is the second part of it. So, okay, as you figure out what's aligned and what's not aligned, what are the changes that you can make? So what are your choices? The choices could be, you could ask yourself, well, how can I align this with my truth? So in my case, I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm going to jump ship on this thing. Maybe there is a way that I can bring this thing that I chose to do months ago. Maybe there's a way to bring it more in alignment with my truth. Maybe we can adjust this approach that we're doing, that it's like, yeah, okay, this feels much more in alignment for me, and then make those choices. But then maybe it might not be able to be adjusted to be fully in alignment with your truth. And in that case, what are the choices you've got to make there? And so that's where it may have to be a choice of, you've got to cut ties, or you've got to let go, or you've got to, whatever the case may be, you've got to make different choices. But going back to what I said at the very beginning, I will say this, that when it comes to, if you're denying your truth, then you need to, let me put it this way, that denying your truth is the fastest way to basically slowly, I hate to put it this way, but kill yourself. Because our truth is our light, and our truth is our radiance and our life force. And when we deny that within ourselves, then we're basically giving ourselves a recipe for sickness and early death, as opposed to when we make those very hard and often courageous choices to honor that truth and live it. That is the way to light up and fully feel your most alive. And so it's important to be honest. It's interesting. I have to tell you, like, even as I'm sitting here talking about this, I noticed that I'm having this like in my own brain, where I'm like, you know what? Earlier today, I said that I was going to do something, or I said something to someone, and I'm sitting here going, it's not in alignment with my truth. That doesn't feel right. So I need to go back to that person and say, no, I'm sorry. I apologize. I made a mistake. I need to reverse on that. You see, because that's going to feel better for me. It's going to feel right. And the other person, they're going to have whatever their response to that is. But the only job that I have, just as the only job that you have, is to honor your truth. So go ahead and be completely honest with yourself, and make those choices that can bring, whether it's bringing that situation more into alignment with your truth, or having to make the tough choices of letting those things go that are not in alignment with your truth. Okay? Having those tough conversations. But above all, as I always say, be very kind and gentle with yourself. It's okay if you've made a mistake. It's okay if you're realizing that you wish you'd done it differently. As I said before, we are all, at every single moment, we are all doing the best we can with what we know. Okay? All righty. So thank you very much. I hope this has been really helpful. Never, ever, ever shame yourself for any mistakes you've made. We're all doing the best we can with what we know. I love you. I hope this has been helpful. Please do check out changelight.world and check out our community and our course, all kinds of wonderful stuff for you. So anyway, I hope you're well. Take care. And I am off to Barcelona in a couple of hours. All right. Mwah. I'll see you later. Bye.